New blog 02. I laughed with relief to see how happy she was, in this moment at least. I could see that recent years had not been kind. "Where is Benjamin? Will he be home tonight?" I asked. It was Jacob who answered me. "Your brother died over 2 years ago now," he said. "It has been very hard on your mother." He carried on. "First Rebecca losing her life in childbirth with my grandson. Then your own disappearance. And then her only son dying of a wasting disease. All that, and losing Joseph too. Hard years, very hard. But now you are back again, beyond hope. It is a miracle." "Benjamin dead? Oh, Ma, my poor, poor Ma," I said, going forward to hold her sobbing shoulders. I couldn't tell which emotion she was shaking with most, but I could at least try to comfort her. Rachel had asked Jacob if she could help by making us all something hot to drink, and Jacob agreed to help her, leaving me alone with my mother. Some time later, we were sat around with our drinks, talking about the intervening years. Jacob told their side of the story, with little interjections here and there from Ma. They didn't know which came first, Benji's great success or the onset of the disease. Business had boomed for him once he had gained control of much of the olive trade in the area. Mostly just shrewd good sense had won him a small fortune, though some complained at the ruthlessness of his dealings. No pot was made without the potter's hand working it. And even as he was planning to get married, it became clear that something was wrong with his health. Coughing was how it started, and in the end he had gone without anything the doctors or his money could do to help. In between, he had built the fine hall onto the house that we'd seen from the outside, to hold the wedding celebration that never happened. Jacob had been securing the family finances since then, to make sure Ruth was all right. She still had a good income from the olive and other distribution businesses, and also had 2 servants here at the house, a married couple who helped run things. But Ruth hadn't the will or the energy to do much more than get by day to day, and Jacob had his own affairs to deal with. When it became my turn to share my story, it was hard to tell them that I had been a priestess in Astarte's temple. I could see it in Uncle Jacob's face that he thought it unthinkable. My mother's thoughts also seemed clear. "What would your father have thought?" Rachel had put a hand on my arm, and I found the strength to continue and relate how in trying to help the city's outcasts, lepers and those possessed by unclean spirits, I had myself gone against a black magician who conjured devils to possess me. I faltered here, even more affected than my audience, who themselves were clearly horrified by my described predicament. Both my mother and I were crying. Rachel carried on the story, to tell how the temple scribe Ariane and the silversmith Johannes helped get me to her in Tyre, and how she had heard of the healer Yeshua in Galilee, so resolved to bring me here. "Who is this Johannes?" asked Jacob. "Someone who himself was in trouble with the so-called Magus, and who was leaving Antioch to visit relatives in Bethany," I answered. Rachel continued. "In Capernaum we found Yeshua, who drove the devils from Mary when no one else could do so. I myself do some healing in my country, but never have seen such a master healer. I shall be travelling back there as soon as I can. You might have heard of his great works." "We have indeed," said my mother, "the miracle worker, but we didn't know how much to believe. So it is true then, he can really do the things that people say?" "Incredible and wonderful," I replied. "I am living proof of what he does. Rachel has told you a little of how bad it was with me. I could carry on no further without help. He has brought me back to this life, as if from death. Jacob was looking slightly sceptical, but my mother was clearly moved. If only we'd been able to take Benjamin to him when he was ill, she said. But then again, he probably wouldn't have gone. It seems that some faith is needed to get Yeshua's help. Benjamin put his faith in whatever his money could buy him. She looked overwhelmingly sad again, but then she turned, stretching out her arm to pat my leg as I sat beside her. But you are back, Mary. God be praised, twice and thrice praised, for he has brought you back to me whole and shining. We must put the past behind, and I will live thankful to have you for whatever time is left to me. Jacob, I now give my share of the business directly over to my daughter Mary. You two must work together for the best of both families. Mary, if you wish to, I would love you to make this house our home again. Make it shine like your brother tried to, but died before he could even have his wedding feast here. I nodded and said I would, but I knew that my mother had recognized my faltering when she mentioned my brother's wishes. Mary, you know he changed in those final weeks of his illness. He told me how much he regretted trying to marry you off, driving you away. We had never spoken of it for several years. You had become a forbidden subject. But in those last days all that changed. It hurt him most deeply that he had taken you from me, and that he was leaving me old and alone. Please forgive him too. A lump came up into my throat from deep within. Somehow I couldn't hold back the emotion that was rising through me in a wave. I had to cover my face as it crumpled once again into the tears of a hurt child. It was my mother's turn to comfort me, and we sat together for a long while, letting things pass between us in the silence that renewed our bond and healed our hurts. Rachel and Jacob were talking in the other room, no doubt about business, as there they had much in common. When they came back to us, Rachel was saying that she must get back to Capernaum. My mother did her best to insist that she should stay as our honoured guest, and I did too, but it seemed she wanted to give some instructions to Aberneth to take back to Tyre about her staying on in Capernaum. I tried again. Rachel, I would be so grateful if you could just stay tonight and meet my new business partners, as I think there could be a tie-up with the businesses that you have. No one could give me a better helping start. Then added, except for you, Uncle Jacob. I should really love to stay, Mary, she said, and meet Daniel, she said to Jacob. But apart from talking to Aberneth, the master said for me to come back quickly. You're right, he did, I replied. And maybe sometime there will be things we can do together that will help him too. I'm sure, yes, Rachel smiled, that we will. Meanwhile, I think your Uncle Jacob is the best help you can have in business. I really would love to stay, but I need to be back. I understood, and I would miss her comforting presence so much. She had been such a tower of strength to me. How could I ever express what her taking me to Yeshua meant to me, except that she found him too? We caught each other's glances, like thoughts that needed no words, yet said our farewells nevertheless, knowing that we should meet again very soon. I had some work to do first, but I will be returning to Marimian as soon as I could.